This is Religion in the News, sponsored by Wish TV, in cooperation with the Church Federation of Greater Indianapolis.
Good morning, Indianapolis. Welcome to Religion in the News. My name is Jeffrey Payne. Joining me today is J.R. Ryder. We have a great show for you today. Today our guests talk about the Indy Christian media and also a Christian car show. News 8 also reports on a young man with a very positive message. All this when we come back. Today is the last day of the Black Expo Summer Celebration. As we wrap up the celebration, we hear from a young man with a positive message. His name is Terrell Jackson, an 18-year-old police charged with being the leader of a gang called the Pop It Off Boys. He has a message for young people who are on a violent path. 24-hour anchor Deanna Newberry reports.
June 9th, Terrell Jackson was one of more than a dozen alleged gang members arrested in a huge raid. Police called him the ringleader of a gang that terrorized the East Side with drive-bys, drug deals, and carjackings. But today, clad in inmate orange, Jackson claims to be an advocate for peace.
Why did you decide to talk to me? Why did you make that decision?
Because it's time for change in my life.
Were you afraid to talk to me before?
I was afraid because of my environment and the safety of my life.
His epiphany comes on the final weekend of Black Expo Summer Celebration. 1 year ago, a gang member shot 9 young people. It's violence that Jackson understands. In May, he was shot at an East Side apartment complex.
You're saying you want to change your life. So do you have a message to other young people who are caught up in that kind of violence?
Leave it alone. I mean, the most I can really say is, like, it ain't the way to go. It's getting old and it's tiring. You know what I mean?
It's easier to say leave it alone when you're locked up in jail than when you're out there and there's all kinds of temptations. Do you think you're going to be able to leave it alone once you're out of jail?
Yes, ma'am.
In what way?
In all kinds of ways. The environment that I've been surrounded in, leave it alone. My environment that I grew up in, I won't go back.
That's what he says, but when asked directly whether he was a gang leader, he says this.
Like the police, they say it's gangs, but it's really a group of kids who grew up together. They got a name for themselves.
Terrell Jackson encourages others who might think of violence this weekend to see his life as an example and to stay out of trouble. Indianapolis police want you to text them if you see anything suspicious downtown this weekend. It's part of the safety plan as thousands of people are in town for Black Expo Summer Celebration. The number to text is 308-0147. JR?
Good morning, I'm J.R. Ryder. Coming up next, my guest talks about the new wave in Christian media. You'll hear that story when we return.
Morning news is like a breakfast buffet.
I like to think of it as like this news breakfast, right?
There's always news happening, and we're going to tell you about it.
It's what you want to know, hopefully. What you need to know, definitely.
Morning news has something for everyone to keep you informed.
If you don't have people that are looking forward, then you won't know what life's about to throw at you.
We can try to start the day with a smile on our face with the latest information, then it's worth it.
Steve Harvey here, new host of Family Feud. We're hitting it every day, having a great time. Yeah, really. Check this out. Are you ready to play Feud? I'm on fire. Yeah! Name a celebrity who has a big mouth.
Steve Harvey.
Now, where were we? He's just jealous.
Family Feud, weekdays at 5 on MyIndy TV 23.
On a very personal, The Doctors.
The doctor said, your mother has a year to live.
Dr. Lisa shares her story of devastating loss.
Here I was a doctor. I couldn't save my mother.
And has a message that can save millions of lives, including yours.
If I can save any woman out there, even though I couldn't save my mom, that's what I'm trying to do.
It's one woman's crusade against a savage disease. The Doctors.
Monday at 4 on Wish TV.
Beth! Hi! Looking good. You've lost some weight.
Thanks, you noticed. You know, these clothes are too big now, so I'm donating them. Not going back there again.
Good for you. How'd you do it?
Eating right, whole grain.
Whole grain.
Whole grain.
People who choose more whole grain tend to weigh less than those who don't. Multigrain Cheerios has 5 whole grains and 110 lightly sweetened calories per serving. More grains, less you. Multigrain Cheerios.
Welcome back. My guest is here to talk about Indie Christian Media. Joining me today is Neil Cox of ICM. Welcome to Religion in the News.
Oh, glad to do it. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Now, Indie Christian Media, this is a multifaceted ministry.
Yep.
It's primarily online,
right,
but the main purpose of it is to kind of unite the Indianapolis Christian media community. Tell us a little bit about your vision and how you got started with ICM.
Okay. Well, in 1999, I had not been in Indianapolis very long, and I was looking for my next job. And you know, the #1 rule of job hunting is network, network, network. And yes, I thought, well, certainly I can go online and find this Christian community already, you know, tightly networked. And as I went online, I just really couldn't find that in 1999. So I started IndieChristian.com, and now it's kind of become a social network called IndieChristianMedia.com. And again, our end of the Great Commission here in the city really is the communication end of it. We want to build a citywide tapestry of communicators. So that's our goal.
Now, IndieChristianMedia.com, when we say media, explain that to our viewers.
Oh, okay. But, you know, when we talk about media, certainly traditionally people have thought of it like this, you know, with all the expensive things and the high quality media. And now we've come down more to this, where everybody is carrying media tool in their pocket. So the question is, what's the motivation of the heart? Do you love the Lord Jesus like we do? And if you do, you can be part of the communication network to spread that good news.
And that was going to actually be my next question for those who want to be a part of this, to get involved with what you're doing. What type of criteria would they have to have?
Well, if you went to IndieChristianMedia.com, a person would see what it would take, but largely it's anybody who would declare Jesus is Lord, okay? And that they want to help communicate, and we work better together than separately.
Absolutely.
So largely it's about the heart first, and then about the tools.
Now, within Indie Christian Media, I know, because I've been on the site myself, you have people who write and record and produce films. You have many people who are ministry leaders that just need to communicate that. It's just a multifaceted ministry, and I love what you're doing. How do you find, you know, those, and how do you keep in touch with all of this? It's just amazing to me how well connected you are.
Well, obviously, it's not about me. You know, it really is about my friends. So, you know, I believe that in this day and time, God's given us new tools to do that connecting process. So, once upon a time, we were trying to create some software and a website that would help connect friends and the like. And we had like 300 of our driven Christians in the racing capital of the world online. And then we saw Facebook, for instance, and we said, quick, stop what we're doing. Let's use the tools of the day to do that. So the way we connect best is just kind of be out there, and they'll find us. So
now, you had mentioned Facebook, and I don't want to call ICM the Facebook of Christian media, but it's kind of on that lines. But you also use other social networks yourself to get your message across. Talk to us about that.
Yes, absolutely. You know, this is not about a website. Nowadays, it's about a web strategy. And our strategy is the same one Jesus told us to do from the beginning: defer to one another. You know, honor one another more highly than yourselves. So now with social media, you can be all over in many different websites. Yes, IndieChristianMedia.com might be the starting point for some. To at least get familiar with the process. Facebook is great. You wouldn't want to overlook it. The other one I'd really like to talk about a little more today would be about Twitter and why that's important to the Christian community.
Sure. Let's talk about Twitter.
Well, you know, one of the reasons Twitter has become so popular so quickly is because it's really heavily geared to this size communication. We have to be concise. You know, here on the show, you've only got so many minutes. With Twitter, it's kind of the same way. You got 140 characters to quickly, you know, get your message out. And of course, you can tweet more than one, but it's as easy as texting. So if a person can text, they certainly could be on Twitter as well. And again, it's that great way to connect and to communicate, you know, and it can just be in a few minutes a day.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of companies, ministries, even television stations, people are jumping on kind of the Facebook/Twitter bandwagon. Is there one, in your opinion, that's a little easier to use than the other? I know you had mentioned Twitter, not that we're putting one above the other, but what's...
Well, I would believe you really need to be on Facebook as a profile kind of a thing.
Okay.
I describe Facebook as a shotgun approach, whereas Twitter is more like a laser-guided, rifle sort of a system. So it's really cut through. So here, let's just say, of all the folks who are believers who are on Twitter, for instance, it's real easy to find them and to cross-connect. One example might be, of course, I'm very much about connecting driven Christians in the racing capital of the world. This is our domain. Let's connect the church here. And I would say that one easy way would be, you know, if I simply type in my Twitter, you know, the tweet for the day, if I use the term #Indy Prayer, other people not only are going to see that, but it's clickable. And when they click it, then they'll see everybody who's very recently created a tweet on the topic of Indy Prayer. So if you had a prayer request, or if you wanted to go online and pray for folks around the city who have prayer requests, you can find that sort of thing on Twitter.
Wow, I didn't realize Twitter was that advanced. I guess I better step up my game, Neil.
Yeah, we'll get there.
So now, what type of events do you have coming up? Or I know you're involved with many events throughout the city just because of the nature of what you do. What are some of the events we should be looking out for coming up here in media?
And of course, they're not the events that I'm doing,
Absolutely.
but that I'm simply pointing to. So for instance, an easy way for people to know those would be like go to Twitter, it'd be twitter.com/IndyChristian. That's me. So there's Indy Christian, but then I'll be often pointing to a site called twitter.com/IndyTimeline.
Okay.
And you're going to find that is an events calendar, and it's so concise, you know, you can read it right off your phone. Some events coming up, well, certainly importantly would be Faith, Hope, and Love Week coming up. We wouldn't want to miss that.
Yes.
In September, we're going to have Emergency Readiness Month. So I think you had Mike Bowler on your show a few weeks ago, and you know, it's very much about helping Christians get ready as opportunities to share the gospel and share compassion with your neighbor, just like Jesus told us to.
Sure.
Another event you absolutely wouldn't want to miss will be in October when CCDA, the national convention, comes here to Indianapolis.
Yes,
and
right here in
we're
our
really
backyard.
looking forward to that, having Dr. John Perkins with us and many others who are changing their cities, you know, across the country.
This is exciting. We want to make sure we put up your contact information. If you could just share that with us, your website, how they can text and get a hold of you.
Again, it's indychristianmedia.com. And importantly, you know, if you wanted to go to Twitter, you could go to twitter.com/IndyChristian, or you could find me on Facebook, friend me, facebook.com/IndyChristian, or just Google Indy Christian. You'll be there.
So we'll be there. Well, Neil, thank you for being our guest today on Religion in the News. We'll continue to follow your progress as you follow ours, and hopefully we can pull this thing together.
All right. Well, praise God. Thanks for doing what you're doing.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Jeff, now to you.
Thanks, Tiara. Coming up next, we'll learn about an upcoming Christian car show right after this break.